folks, a seriously wild weather pattern is brewing across the United States, and it's geared up to deliver even more record-shattering heat to a huge part of the country today. On top of that, a massive storm is on the horizon for later this week that's packing a serious punch with a major threat of severe weather, and we're talking destructive winds, some seriously large hail, and yes, the potential for tornadoes. So, in today's forecast, we're going to dive deep and break down everything you need to know about the weather heading for the United States over the next 7 days, and we're kicking things off with what's going down across the country right now. And at this moment, we have a big storm system that's trekking its way across the Midwest and the northern plains. For most of you this morning, though, it's really just a blanket of clouds. There's not much action in terms of rain or snow. However, if you look way up in northern Manitoba, you'll find a low-pressure system. That's the engine driving this whole storm. And this thing is about to slide down to the southeast over the next 24 hours. What this means is it's going to bring the threat of ice, snow, and rain to the northeast on Sunday and Monday. We could even see some slick ice buildup in some areas, but far northern New England is really in the bullseye for the biggest impacts, where winter weather advisories are already up. This is all thanks to the leftovers from that atmospheric river event that hit the West Coast over the last few days. A ton of rain has been hammering the West Coast, and unfortunately, believe it or not, even more rain is rolling into California today. This is going to be a huge issue for places like Los Angeles, especially in those areas with burn scars from all the wildfires we saw last winter. A lot of those spots are now facing the danger of mudslides today. So please, if you're in California, be incredibly careful and stay safe out there. Now, over the next few days, we're going to see a major shift in our weather pattern, and this is going to set the stage for the rest of November. I'm anticipating a pretty active weather pattern here for the next couple of weeks, so let's get into it. This is what the jet stream and our mid-level flow look like right now. I know, it might look like a bit of a mess, but we currently have a pretty straight west to east flow across the northern tier of the United States. We've got a small low-pressure system hanging out just off the coast of California that's continuing to unload rain across western California right now. And then there's that large storm system way up in Canada, which is set to deliver that ice and snow event come Sunday. So as we head into Sunday and Monday, watch how that storm system dips down to the southeast. It's going to park itself right over northern New England. We've got a really powerful jet stream. This is actually going to help cool things down across the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. Expect a cold front on Sunday to push through a large part of the Ohio Valley. A weak low-pressure system will then meander across the desert southwest on Sunday. This will start to affect areas in the central United States on Monday. I'm looking at a very low-end risk for some strong, maybe even isolated severe storms, mainly across Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois on Monday. Then, on Tuesday and Wednesday, that system will lose some steam as it crosses the Great Lakes. But the real headline maker is what happens after Tuesday. We're tracking a huge storm system poised to move across the desert southwest from Tuesday into Wednesday. It's going to bring some rain to the West Coast, but the real concern is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday across the central and southern plains. A very powerful southwestern flow is predicted to be in place. And depending on how this dip in the jet stream kicks out over the Rockies and the desert southwest, that's the key that will determine our risk for severe weather and just how much flooding rain we are going to get. Right now, the GFS model is pointing to Thursday and Friday as potentially big days for severe weather, mainly hitting Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. Then, on Friday, that threat would shift over into the Dixie Alley region, so we could be looking at a 2-day severe weather event coming up on Thursday and Friday with all hazards on the table. We could have a major outbreak, or it could just be a lower-end event. And, to be completely straight with you, nobody knows for sure exactly how this will play out, because it all hinges on how this low-pressure system develops across the South on Thursday, and even on Wednesday before it ever reaches the Texas and Oklahoma areas. So you absolutely need to be monitoring this situation very closely as long as there's any kind of risk for severe weather and also that flooding threat. You can count on us for daily updates about this storm system. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and smash that bell icon to be notified with the latest updates, because Wednesday through Saturday is shaping up to be incredibly active across much of the United States. Then, by Sunday and Monday of next week, that's when the crystal ball gets a little cloudy. But the GFS model is hinting that we're going to stay locked in a very active weather pattern with likely several more storm systems making their way across the central and southern US during the final week or so of November. So, buckle up, because we could be in for a pretty wild ride. Definitely make sure you are staying weather aware. Now, one thing we're dealing with right now is an absolutely insane heat wave. We've seen over 100 records shattered in terms of record-breaking high temperatures just from yesterday. You can find it on the front page of our YouTube channel, or you can click the top link in the description below, or just wait for the end card. It'll pop up right here in just a moment. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Upwards of 30 degrees above normal across the Great Lakes and the Central Plains. And by the way, this is a complete 180 from last weekend. We had that massive blast of Arctic air that shot right across the East Coast and hit the Great Lakes as well. So yeah, it feels like we're in a completely different zip code with the weather we're seeing this weekend. The good news, though, for my friends in the Northeast, is that we're going to snap right back to some more winter-like weather on Monday and Tuesday as some cold air rides in on the backside of that low-pressure system. So get ready for that across the Northeast. Unfortunately, unseasonably warm temperatures are expected to stick around across the Great Plains on Monday and Tuesday. And by the middle and end of the week, it's pretty much going to feel like Groundhog Day across the country, as we are going to stay warmer than average for most of the lower 48 at least through next weekend. Okay, and before my comments section blows up, I've seen a couple of posts go viral on social media over the last couple of days showing this massive Arctic blast hitting right around Thanksgiving. I've even seen some meteorologists sharing this, which frankly I think is just wild. Now, I want to be clear, yes, there is a possibility that we could see some Arctic air and even a strong cold front around the end of November. I think we will at some point, however. There's really no solid science to pinpoint exactly when that will happen, or if it'll be around Thanksgiving, or just how cold it might get, because we're looking well over 10 days out. Just remember, predicting any aspect of the weather gets really tricky beyond 10 days. Heck, even 7 days can be a stretch in many cases, though temperatures are a little bit easier to forecast. But even then, we're looking at general trends more than anything. We just can't lock in exact numbers that far in advance, so I'm just putting that out there. Again, don't put too much stock in anything you're seeing about Thanksgiving, as that is still over a week away from now. And for today, we're expecting about 24 record-high temperatures to be set anywhere from the Central Plains all the way back into the Midwest. Places like Oklahoma City will be challenging record highs in the low 80s today, which is not something you see very often here in the month of November. Heck, over in Wichita Falls, they could get close to 92 degrees today. That is just sizzling for this time of year. By tomorrow morning, though, a cold front will start sweeping across the Central Plains and the Ohio Valley. So our temperatures are going to take a bit of a hit. Things will start to cool down, but for folks in the Southern Plains and along the Gulf Coast, it's going to stay hot right through the end of the weekend and into early next week, with really no signs of any major relief in the forecast for most of Texas or even the southern states. Plains. The only real break we're likely to get won't show up until around Friday once those storms and that low-pressure system finally move across the deep south. But even then, it's not going to be a major cool down. We're definitely not talking about any Arctic air here. We're expecting about 24 record-high temperatures to be set anywhere from the Central Plains all the way back into the Midwest. Places like Oklahoma City will be challenging record highs in the low 80s today, which is not something you see very often here in the month of November. Heavy snowfall is on the table for northern New England overnight and into tomorrow morning. We'll also see some light snow hanging around into early Monday morning across many of the higher elevations there in New England and upstate New York as well. Come Monday, a whole lot of rain is going to keep soaking the West Coast, especially California. So get ready for some potential flooding from all that rainfall. A weak low-pressure system is going to drift across the Central Plains early Monday into Tuesday. We could see a little bit of light snow across Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, but it's nothing to write home about. This isn't going to be anything for the history books, maybe just an inch or two in a few spots. Then, Wednesday and Thursday are when things really start to get interesting. On Wednesday, we're expecting a ton of moisture to get pulled up from the Gulf, with a low-pressure system setting up over Colorado and New Mexico. And that setup is going to unleash a ton of rain from Texas all the way back into Missouri. The flood risk will definitely be higher on Wednesday and Thursday, but Thursday and Friday are shaping up to be the days to watch for some significant severe weather. With that in mind, there are still a lot of question marks about how these storms are going to develop, whether it's Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. It's all going to hinge on how this trough evolves. I'm pretty confident we'll see at least some level of severe weather on Thursday. Just look at the GFS model. It's showing a huge area of storms during the day on Thursday, with a potential line of thunderstorms. If we were to see a line form, damaging winds would be the main threat, with the possibility of some embedded tornadoes. The European model, however, is telling a different story, showing more individual discrete supercells, and if that scenario plays out, we could be looking at a tornado outbreak. So, Thursday is absolutely a day to stay weather aware. Then, by Friday, more severe weather is possible across areas in the Ohio Valley and Dixie Alley. But once again, what happens on Friday is really going to depend on how things play out on Wednesday and Thursday. It also depends on how fast this trough moves and how far north it tracks. The farther north it goes, the lower the chances of severe weather will be. Then, by the weekend, that storm system will move across the northeast, but it's not really looking like it'll bring much wintry weather with it. And then by next week, that's when the forecast gets a lot fuzzier. But still, both the European and GFS models continue to point toward pretty active weather right through the end of November. And I've got some great news for all you winter lovers out there. The Climate Prediction Center is indicating that during the first couple of weeks of December, below average temperatures are likely across the central and northern plains, the upper Midwest, and across the Northeast. This is something we've hinted at in our winter forecast as well, that it looks like this winter is going to kick off on the colder side. So overall, if we were to see a line form, damaging winds would be the main threat, with the possibility of some embedded tornadoes. The European model, however, is telling a different story, showing more individual discrete supercells, and if that scenario plays out, we could be looking at a tornado outbreak. So, Thursday is absolutely a day to stay weather aware. Then, by Friday, more severe weather is possible across areas in the Ohio Valley and Dixie Alley. But once again, what happens on Friday is really going to depend on how things play out on Wednesday and Thursday. It's titled "This Winter Just Got Even Crazier." It's packed with new details about what we're expecting this winter and also gives a full meteorological breakdown of what we can anticipate over the next few months in terms of snowfall, cold air, and a whole lot more. So go ahead and check that out. That's the big picture for now. It looks like the start of meteorological winter is going to be a cold one. And remember, meteorological winter begins on December 1st. Astronomical winter, the one most people think of, starts around December 21st. Meanwhile, across the southeast, above-average temperatures seem likely